Do I recommend the Palm Pre? 100% I can recommend the Palm Pre to you. Are we going to see it at Apple TV? No doubt they've got the set all ready to go. Windows Phone 7 has tremendous potential. When you hold it up to your face, you can sort of get a profile of what that's going to look like. It looks silly. I can see myself going into an Apple store saying, hey, let me check out the new Slate.
So yeah, I was wrong. So for the past 12 years, I've been sitting in some version of this chair, talking to you guys, reviewing electronics. And during those 12 years, I've had the privilege to take a look at tons of tech products. When I review something, it's in a vacuum. If I'm reviewing a product in 2008, that's the only frame reference I have. And I was able to find some videos of things that have changed, companies that went sideways that I never could have predicted at that time. So, I humbly present to you my 5 biggest mistakes I've ever made on YouTube.
Do I recommend the Palm Pre? 100% I can recommend the Palm Pre to you.
But when I thought about mistakes, the first thing that came to my head was back in 2009 with the Palm Pre. There haven't been that many phones that I was crazy hyped about. I mean, when John Rubinstein took that CES stage and showed what WebOS was, it was amazing, and I still think that's one of the greatest keynotes I have ever seen, and I could not wait to get my hands on it. It used card-based multitasking. I'm sure it's something like that sounds familiar. It had a slide-out keyboard, a capacitive touchscreen. It had a gesture area. It was the first phone that I can remember that offered inductive charging. It had this touchstone charger. It was an optional accessory to buy afterwards, but it worked, and it worked well, and wireless charging back in 2009 seemed crazy futuristic. This was the first true competitor to the iPhone, and in a myriad ways was better than what Apple was offering. So again, benefit of hindsight. Palm made a few really big mistakes that proved to be catastrophic. First, launching with Sprint, one of the smallest carriers in the US at the time, was probably a mistake, but the bigger mistake was the ad campaign that went along with the Palm Pre. That was the most cringy, weird ad campaign that said nothing about what was a really revolutionary device. There were huge build quality issues. Again, I had to get 3 before I found one that worked. And if you go back and watch really almost anyone's initial Palm Pre review, they are glaringly positive. I gave it,
on a 1 to 5 scale, I give the Palm Pre a really solid 4 3/4.
People loved these devices, but consumers didn't know what it was. They didn't really know what smartphones really were that much at a time. It was kind of the iPhone or a BlackBerry. And it's something that the advertisement campaign could have come in, educated people, and they completely missed the boat.
I think in the long run, Windows Phone 7 is going to be a tremendous competitor to Android and iOS. I think it's sort of a nice in-between.
So a year after Palm introduced WebOS, so in 2010, Microsoft entered the mobile OS game with Windows Phone 7. I was actually at the launch, and I remember when they handed me my HTC and LG made Windows phones, and these things looked amazing, and unlike any other phones I've seen, this live tile interface gives you information at a glance. You could customize the tiles. I thought Internet Explorer Mobile was actually a pretty good browser, and it was at the time, before you dog me in the comments. One of the greatest things I think that Windows Phone had going for it, their on-screen keyboard was ridiculously amazing. The Windows Marketplace, I thought, was gonna be a burgeoning app ecosystem. It didn't launch with very many. It was oddly tightly integrated with Facebook, but the apps that I used, I could get either a first-party or a third-party app that did the same thing. And I went on camera and I said, if you're looking to get a new smartphone,
I think you owe it to yourself to at least look at Windows Phone 7, because you might be surprised. It feels very, I guess, un-Microsoft-y.
Maybe the biggest problem was that app support that I thought was going to come never came, and sort of a weird issue that popped up was Microsoft bought Nokia. So then Nokia started making Windows phones, and your LGs and Samsungs and HTCs didn't want to compete. It was essentially a Microsoft company that was making Windows Phone hardware, so they started to bow out. But Windows Phone was around for a long time. They didn't kill it until 2017. We got Windows Phone 10, and they were all versions of good, and you could see the vision that was supposed to be there. Just never took off what Microsoft hoped. And speaking of that last word pro, I'm still not sure what's pro here. Alright, so for a more recent miss, 2015, on the launch of the original iPad Pro. And the iPad Pro was definitely not what it is right now. There was only one version, it was 12.9 inches, and that seemed absolutely ridiculous to me running iOS. It was sort of the first taste we saw of Apple's sort of tablet as a PC vision, but it was very clearly not there yet. But I wanted to try it, and I wanted to use it as my only computer. So I was actually flying to Germany. I was doing a video with BMW at the time. So I took it with me, and trying to use it on airplanes was like unwieldy. Trying to communicate and do all my email and typing that I needed was fine, but when I needed to do actual computer stuff, it started to fall behind, and I couldn't wrap my head around a 12.9 inch tablet. I didn't see a use for it. I thought it was too big, and running a phone OS that didn't make any sense on something that size. When I think where I started to really see the benefit of a larger screen size, when sort of iOS gave it more tablet-y and dedicated computer features. Not necessarily iPad OS, but it could do more than the iPhone could. When the current gen iPad Pro hit, with thinner bezels and the whole size shrunk down, but the screen size stayed the same, when Face ID came, when the second generation Apple Pencil came out, that's when it felt good. And it started to see the power for what it could be, and kind of now what it is with iPad OS. It was kind of a long-ish evolution to get to Apple's vision. I just didn't see it at the time. So a 5-inch tablet, when you hold it up to your face, you can sort of get a profile of what that's gonna look like. It looks silly. So when you think back on the very first phablet, and I still maintain that I said phablet first on camera before anybody, but you probably think the Galaxy Note. That was not the first one. Dell actually made the first phablet. It was called the Dell Streak, or at least the first phablet that I reviewed. It was 5 inches with gigantic bezels, and it looked ridiculous. Dell had no idea what it was or how to market it. They were like, you could use it as a GPS in your car. You can maybe use it as a tablet that makes phone calls. They didn't know what to do with it, but I knew I wanted to try it. So I put that phone in my pocket, giant bezels and all, and I walked around using it. And I remember I was in business school at the time, and I met with my professor. And I took it out because my wife was calling me, and he laughed out loud, like a guttural laugh, and then pointed at me. Like, what are you doing? You are a crazy, crazy human. And it's hard to look back and be like, why would anybody question a 5-inch phone? Back then, phones were 3.5 inches, generally speaking. So this thing was ginormous, and then it had gigantic bezels on top of that. But the line died a very quick death. But I still maintain the Dell Streak was an amazing tablet. I believe I said that people should consider it and buy it. And that was probably not accurate, because the Galaxy Note line was coming. And that was gonna be the phablet to get. That was a phone first that could also be a tablet. The Streak was a tablet that could make phone calls. And that, in hindsight, is probably not the way to go.
For the most part, I'm pretty ambivalent towards the watch, just like I was towards Android Wear. But this ambivalence comes with a really hefty price.
Maybe one of my biggest swings and misses, 2015, and the Apple Watch came out. I was at that keynote, saw Tim Cook on stage, debut it, and generally I can get super pumped and hyped for these products at the keynotes. I was like, why is somebody going to want this? I was super invested and in love with my Moto 360 running Android Wear. That was a jam, it was round, I don't care about the stupid flat tire it had. It looked awesome. And I said very publicly that Android Wear was amazing, and it was gonna be what people should use, and every watch should have Android Wear, and clearly that was also another miss. But the Apple Watch for me was nothing more a notification machine. And what's kind of funny was the things I knocked on the Apple Watch for were just big notifications and kind of slow running apps, are still the case on the Apple Watch. But I'm a big enough man, I could admit a miss on that, because I love my Apple Watch. And I think what sold me on it as time passed and generations went by was the health features that got built in. Obviously, I love you can close the ring, something that launched with the watch, but as more features got added, it became more of a part of my day, something I would just look at to see who was calling me. So a miss on the Apple Watch, also a miss on Android Wear, but I still maintain I was dead right about the Moto 360 being amazing and the greatest smartwatch that was ever made. So I had a blast looking back at these old videos, cringing at myself and what I looked like and all that kind of fun stuff, but also the benefit of hindsight now, looking back. Alter my perspective a little bit about videos I'm doing now. So looking at OnePlus 7 Pro. Am I gonna be sitting here in 5 years being like, wow, we didn't know what was gonna happen to a company like OnePlus? You know, saying we didn't know what the iPad was going to be and now it's my only computer that I use in 3 or 4 years. Looking at the past got me thinking about the future and sort of reevaluating how I look at products, maybe coming out of a vacuum a little bit more and trying to see a bigger picture. So I think in that aspect, can learn from the mistakes. I hope you guys had fun kind of coming along with me as I went through the time machine of tech mistakes past.